So here we are. Finally, we're going to the very last Christopher Reeve Superman movie, which Brendan had never seen.
What a scoop!
I come not to praise Superman 4, but to bury it.
Never mind the small talk, Luther. I've got a lot to do.
I had not seen it, I think, since 1987.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
and I'd watched breakdowns on YouTube, so I've been reminded of what was
You
in
watched
it.
people breaking down on YouTube because they had seen the movie?
Yeah.
Where are you gonna get it?
There's a really good one by Double Toasted where they really drill into that one shot of Superman flying towards the camera that they reuse about 20 times. And that, having known about that, as soon as that shot popped up in the very first opening scene, I was like, oh, there it is.
Well, they showed that. I mean, if it's your first time watching it, as with mine, I see that and I go, oh God, that looks cheesy. Then when you see it a second time, a third time, it just, it doesn't improve. That's what's weird. Maybe the filmmakers thought we like it by the fourth time. I hated this, Chad. I hated it.
So, okay. You had predicted that you might enjoy this one more. Or maybe even a little. Oh, you do? Okay.
I do. But I mean,
about that much.
Well, not even that much. Whatever the circumference is of Superman's one hair that Luther steals.
Okay.
Because I do get what people say. Now I can look at the reviews and go, yeah. That it's slightly better because, this is a Superman movie. Or at least in structure, it's not a Richard Pryor vehicle with Superman pasted on. It's trying to do but it's
that could be like the subtitle or like an image under Superman 4 in the poster. There's a little thing of Richard Pryor going down in the corner going, "Miss me yet?"
The people!
All right, here's my analogy. One time you went to a restaurant, okay? And you had the best burrito you've ever had. Chicken burrito. It just blew your mind. It was great. A while later, you go back to that same restaurant. The chef back there is different, but you're like, oh, all right. Well, the waiter, the same guy who brought it, who's awesome, he's still there. And you say, I'm ready. Bring me that same burrito. So what's brought to you by that same waiter, who is a charming individual, he has a look on his face like, puts it down, and at first glance, it looks kind of like it's like, yeah, okay. But then you start cutting in, you're like, this isn't a tortilla. This is actually wet cardboard made to look kind of like a tortilla. And you go and you're like, oh, they didn't have chicken. I think, this is little cubes of Spam that they grilled and put in there. And you're like, oh, all right, well, at least there's beans and rice. The rice is old. It's very clumpy. And the beans never got soaked. They are rock hard.
Oh, no.
You're like, what is this? Is this cheese? No, it's yellow yarn. And you're like, what is it? You look back and that chef's like, that's what we had. And again, the waiter's like, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
That's what this movie is.
Yeah.
This movie comes out and you're like, oh, it's a Superman movie. Yay. And Christopher Reeve, still the best waiter. He is ready to please.
I just wish you could all see the earth the way that I see it.
But all they had to give you was stuff that was very undercooked and not well made and the wrong ingredients and stuff that would save money. And again, that's the problem. What really failed Superman 3 and 4, even though they're not responsible for making 4, is Warner Brothers. Because Warner Brothers gave up on the character because of the failure of 3.
Well, it was Salkind still had the rights.
Yes, the Salkind, that's right.
They allowed this to happen.
Cheap. They allowed this to happen.
They did.
And they're blaming, that's very much like studios. They decide, well, the audience doesn't give a shit about Superman anymore because look what happened with 3. Not that they look self-critically and go, oh, who greenlit that story idea? Oh, wait.
Cannon reduced the budget from $36 million to $17 million.
Yeah, that
right before they started production.
Yeah, I mean
and you can see
there are a couple of really great documentaries out about Cannon films, both of which are really entertaining. But right around this time, Cannon was taking the big swings. The only problem is they couldn't back it up. Their big swings were Masters of the Universe, which they ran out of money by the end. They're like, you've got 4 days to finish up the movie. And the director's like, I've got more stuff to shoot. And they're like, and it flopped, and so did Superman 4, maybe because they only gave it 17 million. Also, Sidney J. Furie, not a great director.
No.
This script is not good.
No.
And when you start this movie, and we're going to go through the whole thing, but when you start this thing, it immediately feels like Bobo Superman. It immediately feels like dollar store knockoff. If it weren't for the fact that they have these talents in it, that they still have Christopher Reeve, that they've got Margot Kidder, that they even have Gene Hackman, who I feel bad for at the end of this movie. I feel bad for all of them because I'm like, you deserve so much better. It goes beyond my love of the character, which knows no bounds, and they've clearly not done the character justice with this movie, but the individuals who their hearts might be in the right place, but man.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, again, well, we'll talk about it. Anyway.
But before we get started, I'm not so sure that a bigger budget would have helped this movie much.
A bigger budget might have literally gone towards, let's hire different writers.
It could have, yeah.
Maybe we can attract a better director. And certainly, maybe let's spend more than $250 on special effects.
Yeah. Yeah.
There are things in this movie that feel like you could have, this was like colorized episode of The Adventures of Superman with George Reeves. I mean, because there's such cheesy stuff in here. And for a weekly TV show from the 50s, I'm not dumping on Adventures of Superman. They did what they could do, and I love it. But this is attempting to be a feature film after 3 films after a masterpiece. And then this is the best we can do. Holy shit. You see wires. This movie, you actually see wires in a couple of scenes of Superman landing, and the wires are there. And I literally was like, whoa.
Yeah.
And again, I'm feeling terrible for these great people because whether it's about money or whatever, I mean, Gene Hackman probably was never like, Lex Luthor deserves better. I think he was just like going, look, all right, I'll show up contract wise and da-da-da. But they all knew this was bad. They all knew it was bad. And Christopher Reeve obviously had been wooed back, not just by a paycheck, but also like, we want your story input.
I want to find something for Superman to do that would be worthwhile. He says, I tell you what, you write the script.
And his heart's in the right place. This movie has a heart in the right place. It's just a heart that, man,
that's
is being
about
protected by, like a brown paper bag. I mean, they just, oof. I've now watched this twice, by the way, because we were supposed to do this last week.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. I mean, that's fine. So now I've seen it twice in my life, and I will never pick that DVD up again. I just won't.
Yeah.
I mean,
it is heartbreaking to watch it.
That's the problem, is that this is our goodbye to this iteration of the character with one of the best actors that will ever do it. I say that having not seen our new, Mr. Corn Sweat. I have no idea what his Superman's going to be like, but still, it's like Chris deserved better. It's nuts. All right.
Yeah.
I can call him Chris because we're good friends.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of which, this is that DVD, and I am now putting it away in the box.
For the
I'm
very
put
last
it away in the box for the last time. Look up in the sky. Who's that guy? He's not present in that film, Superman. Just joking. He is present in that film. Right off the bat, also, I'll say this. The score, of course, is John Williams' score. And then they hired what I can only assume is a high school band director to do the very best marching band version of that score. Even the score sounds cheesy.
Is it really? It's Alexander Courage, the guy who did this original Star Trek theme.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
It's still the great theme music, but it's just being done very poorly and cheaply. It does sound like, we want this to sound like a full orchestra, but we could only afford the, Hollywood high school marching band. It's just, and the credits are once again zooming, but they're zooming with bad animation and disappearing behind the earth. Even the Superman symbol that comes up, I'm like, I'm sorry.
Oh, it looks terrible.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, Golan and Globus. You couldn't cut something out of the comic that looked better than that? Jeez.
Oh, it's yeah. That's the thing. Is like right off the bat, you see
It
the
is
budget going,
immediate.
sorry, that's all we got. You
I will
know?
say this once, because I will, just like I did the last time, I will highlight things I think are pretty good. Once we get past all that nonsense, the first 10 minutes of the movie I kind of like, even though I have problems with it.
Yeah. Yeah. The opening scene where he's rescuing the astronauts is
Yeah.
pretty fun. And it's a neat idea that we hadn't seen in the films yet.
And two things twice in the movie, and I wouldn't be surprised if this is again Christopher Reeve's input, since he's the whole reason this movie has this theme. For those of you who are younger, but Chad and I remember because we're right there at the height of it as teenagers. The new Cold War, the nuclear fear really was everywhere in the 80s, mid 80s. That's around the time that we were watching TV movies like Special Bulletin and The Day After. It was all about they're going to drop the nukes any day now. Russia and the US it's all heated and we're all afraid.
War games.
War games. I mean,
Yeah.
there are a lot of movies and TV shows use it as a theme.
God damn it, I'd piss on a spark plug if I thought it'd do any good.
So that fear, it wasn't just like progressive actor Christopher Reeve saying like, I want to address this. It was like, look, hopefully maybe Superman can comfort like kids of today. And it's like, it's not, if people want peace bad enough, they'll make their leaders do these things. So that's the message of the movie. Fine message. So it opens with him saving Soviet astronaut. And that's great. Right off, you're like, yeah, he's a hero for the entire world. And the two times in the movie where he speaks their language to them. In this, he speaks Russian. Later on, he saves some Italian folks who apparently don't know how to operate a door. Anyway, we'll get but yeah, he speaks Italian to them. He speaks Russian. It does still bug me in that first scene where he saves this, and it's kind of clever. You got the Soviet cosmonaut is singing "My Way" in Russian. It's so nice and funny. And he gets accidentally knocked off by a satellite, and Superman shows up to recover him and get him back in his space capsule. And I like all that, except for the fact that he talks in space.
Yeah, yeah, I know. And we had that in Superman 2 as well.
I will say, and that's a comic thing. Maybe some of the later writers, and I think John Byrne and some of the later 80s and 90s writers would do things like he has a little mask on that has like a mic attached so he can talk to people through radio. But still, that aside, it also bugged me throughout the movie. Like when he gets all the missiles, when he's collecting them, every time he touches something in space, you hear like a doom. It's like there's no noise in space. It's not just the talking, but you hear him whooshing. I'm like, there's no air to whoosh. And every time he grabs something like the Soviet thing where he opens the door, it actually makes a noise. I'm like, it wouldn't make a noise.
Right. That is one thing, just a side note, that is one thing I noticed in the Donner cut, that in the Lester theatrical version, when they're flying around the moon and stuff, there's all the whooshy noises, just like you say. Michael Thaw and Donner took out the whooshing noises. That was probably, I bet you that was Thaw's idea. That just sounds like him.
I mean, look, I do know that far more ridiculous things have happened in issues of Superman, the comic, which of course, and multiple Superman comics. That is, I'm not going to say it's different, but I think the movies should at least be smarter to some degree. And sometimes I just sit there going like, dude, even an 8-year-old watching that would probably have like, wait, how? No, that doesn't work. There's especially later when Lacey is up there out of the atmosphere. We're not there yet.
I mean, at that point, the film's just like, whatever, let's just get this over with. You know?
Yes, exactly. It's like, how? Wow, she hasn't flash frozen. Awesome. Good for her. What the fuck? Anyway, so he says, I like this section and it's very charming. Then the next section is him in Smallville at the old farm. I like this little scene. This is great.
It was nice. Yeah.
It's really nice. It's just him saying to a guy who he must have known as a kid, but we don't know this guy. But he's like, well, Clark, have you decided how you're going to sell the farm? And he's like, yeah, I'm not selling it to a real estate developer. It has to go to a family that wants to have a farm. I mean, that's good character stuff.
That was good. Yeah.
That was good. And him playing Clark for this guy. And he's like going, oh, look at there's your old crib. Your dad told me once, because he was a joker. I said, how'd the crib get broken right there? He's like, oh, Clark had a nightmare and he kicked it. Like, okay.
Yeah. That was
fine.
That was all right.
It's all cute.
We do see in this scene, we see one of the first, you thought Lester was committing nerdy crimes by making up all those crazy superpowers in Superman 2. In this one, we see the first one. This one is not that bad, but it's like it's a stare at something to make it turn invisible. Right before that, when that guy shows up and he's in the barn looking at the ship, he kind of intently looks at it and then it fades away. And I don't know if that was supposed to be, oh, now it's invisible, or if he just like willed it out of existence or something, what that was supposed to be. Whatever it was, again, like the crazy things that happen later, is because they didn't have the effects to do anything that made sense.
Does he get the crystal before the dude shows up?
Yeah. The dude shows up while he's in the barn.
He didn't make it vanish. No, literally that because you were confusing me. That is because he takes the crystal. She says, like, everything, this is the very final gift we have. So once you take this, it all goes away, including, it's supposed to be that his ship has dissolved. It goes away because he took the crystal out. It wasn't him staring at it. So now there is no ship. That was the last thing. It's a very Deus Ex Machina thing, just like before, where it's like, look, we told you couldn't sleep with a human, but all right, one shot, and now we're going to burn out all the Kryptonian computers that you have in the fortress just so you can go back to being Superman. But you got and now this movie does another one, like, all right, we have one crystal left, this one crystal, but once you use this to restore yourself, which you will need to do later in the movie, that's it for Krypton, totally gone.
Yeah. It was one of many sort of desperate repeated story elements, like, because all these things they're throwing in there to try to reel people in. Oh, we got Gene Hackman back as Luthor. We're back on the Kent farm. We got
what do you get out of, and I'm speaking as if I were a writer on this, what would you get as a writer out of creating that sort of dumb tension instead of when he gets injured by Nuclear Man and it's killing him? Why can't he just go back to the Fortress of Solitude and there are Kryptonian things that he can heal himself? I mean, he can still be sick or whatever and recovering, but you don't need it to be a thing where it's like, the last energy that we sent to you with your ship it's like, dude, just go.
Yeah, it's because they didn't have the budget. Well, he actually does go back to the fortress.
He does go back to the fortress. Though
it makes me wonder why they wasted money building that set again, because it's a really crappy version of the old set.
Of course. Well, I think you just summed up the movie. A crappy version of you fill in the blank. The costume. You can see threads coming out. I mean, literally, it's just like, Jesus.
It wasn't even necessary, that scene where he goes and like,
that's what I'm saying.
Mom, I'm not sure what to do about the missiles.
Oh, man.
The same conversation he has, we'll get to that later. But I mean,
and you get voiceover. And then you get a return of not even
the elders. That's
council.
Right.
The elders are just like, it's like, betrayal.
Betrayed. Jeez, like, what are you doing?
I didn't know that the Kryptonian culture was so melodramatic. Guilty, betrayed.
Yeah. It was like a B movie, like, Attack of the Killer Shrews or something. It was
really is.
What? Of course, it was canon, but yeah.
All right, yeah. So he gets the crystal first, right? Then the ship is gone. Then the guy shows up and he says, "Hey, don't sell it to blah blah blah. I don't want it to go toward." He goes, "We've got enough malls and not enough farms." I'm like, "Yeah, man, that's the character." And then he pretends like he can't hit the guy's like baseball pitch. He's like, he goes, well, "You never were good with a curveball. See you later, Clark. I'm mocking you, the most powerful being in existence. Bye." And then Clark's like, "You want to see something? You want to see something?" Pow! So here's another problem. That baseball would have just dissipated with that kind of power behind it.
Somebody mentioned that in the comments. Yeah.
Let's say it didn't. Let's say it then was able to go up, but it would be burned up. leaving the atmosphere.
Well, I mean, same thing with him kicking the football in the first. Wouldn't it just
Yeah,
explode?
but we don't see it go into space. It literally could have just gone
It just
thousands
goes
of feet into the
into
air.
the next town. Yeah.
Yeah, and then probably pops, and then it falls as an empty flapping piece of, whatever.
That would have been that would have been still would have been great to see if he just slow motion kicks the ball, just goes, it just vaporizes.
He's like, that's why I don't play football. Because literally I'm that powerful. Oh, there was a good line. Again, terrible screenplay, but there is a good line where the salesman guy goes,
Will you be careful when you get back to Metropolis, Clark?
don't forget, you're a long way from where you started. And Clark goes, no, I never forget that. You're like, oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
And again, Christopher Reeve is going to sell it. He's going to sell it as much as he can. But then we get to Metropolis, and things are hopping.
Ha!
Wait, first, isn't it Lois getting on the subway, and Clark misses the subway, and she's practicing French? And then, I love this. Metropolis, man, it is a dangerous town. It's not even like a part of the crime or any of the super stuff later. It's just that Lois happens to get on a subway, and the subway driver is just like,
Yeah.
So it is a help, and Superman stops the train and then does a very Christopher Reeve thing.
Gentlemen, one moment.
I would like everyone around here to know that this is still the safest way to travel.
Yes. That was, again, them saying, let's do that line again to make people feel, at home.
But this one's
something.
more is like, hey, I know the people are freaked out because of what happened, but subways are still the best way to travel in a city, most safe. And you're like, there you go, Superman. So anyway, they get to Daily Planet, and here's the problem, is that the Daily Planet, it's been sold.
Miguel Dave, voilà, Monsieur David Warfield.
David Warfield.
Oh, here's another thing that cracked me up. So clearly this isn't the same Daily Planet set. Everything here is a mall in Calgary. I have a feeling that everything is.
When they couldn't afford to go back on location in New York for one thing.
Yeah, like Daily Planet building, whenever the UN, all that stuff, it's like it's the outside of a mall in Calgary. But anyway, so he shows up, and it's like the movie just acknowledges no one matters in this universe except for Clark, Lois, Jimmy, and Perry, because the entire staff is gathered. They're all standing. Perry is at a table with the new owner, who's evil, corrupt, Rupert Murdoch substitute, Bobo Rupert Murdoch, and his hot daughter. And but the table seems to be reserved only for, I'm the managing editor, Perry White. Here are my two best reporters and that photographer that hangs out with them. And then like 5 feet behind the central cast is the rest of the staff. And I'm like, wouldn't the staff be like, man, Steve Lombard, like the sports writer, should be like, hey dude, why can't I sit at the table?
Yeah. I will give the writers credit in that they seem to know that spending a lot of time with the planet, with the staff, was important to this whole thing. And they're right, because we didn't get enough of that in the previous movie.
Why are there no air travel expenses here for you, Mr. Kent?
They're bringing back what they believe everyone needs, which is, of course, we've got to get Lois back in. She's the central love interest. Jimmy's, again, kind of underused. Perry gets his two big scenes. This one, and then the one where at the end, when he's like, well, I'm now the majority shareholder, and we're back to being the Daily Planet I like. And I got to say, Jackie Cooper, he's looking a little frail at this point. He's still delivering, but it's like, it's probably best that Perry only had like 2 scenes.
Right.
Mr. White, don't do anything rash.
But the whole concept here is this is also of its day. The whole thing of tabloid journalism, which was on the rise, thanks to like a Rupert Murdoch, this is current. And so the whole idea of like, we present the truth. We are a good newspaper. And he's like, yeah, but your numbers are sliding because you're not sensationalist enough. So we're going to take anything that seems like, hey, there's nuclear paranoia. Now we're going to say doomsday clock is ticking or whatever it is and make everyone freak out. And Clark's like, isn't that irresponsible? Because you're actually heightening the problem and we're just here to report the news. That's all solid concept. It's just not done well. But anyway, this guy Warfield is now the billionaire owner and is trying to turn the Daily Planet into like a tabloid. and his daughter Lacey Warfield. He's like, yeah, this is going to be kind of under her domain. I'm just going to be, and so you'll take your orders from her. It's my daughter. Blah, blah, blah. And she immediately, for some reason's like, oh, that's Clark Kent, your lead reporter. It's very weird. She automatically decides that the nerd, who is of course a handsome guy, tall, but she's like, he will be mine.
Mm-hmm.
And Lois talks to her. That's when the meeting breaks up. And Lacey's like, so what do you know about Clark? And she's like, oh, Clark's absolutely great, and he's loyal, and he's a sweet guy. And I like the way Lois goes, and I want him to stay that way.
Yeah.
And she goes, oh, are you interested in Clark? She goes, me, Clark? No.
What she says too is like, I don't think Clark would be interested in somebody like you.
Yeah, she does. She's like going, if you're putting your sights on Clark, I'm not sure you're his type. Here's the deal. And she goes, what? I'm every man's type. And she goes, I'm filthy rich.
Yeah.
Oh, the 80s.
Yeah.
We lived through the 80s. Anyway, so I guess that's the whole point of that, is to set that up as like that's a C plot, maybe a B plot. But you're right. At least the Daily Planet is central to the movie.
It could have been that setup of there being a crisis at the planet could have been an interesting basis for something.
It is exactly like I was saying with Superman 3. There's like story elements of a bad movie, but you're like, you take any of those elements and you develop them properly, write it well, and it would work. So again, this is slightly better, but I'm like, yeah, okay, good. Some planet stuff. I'll take it. And I think then we get to Luthor. And I got to say,
this is where it really starts getting bad. I hate to say it.
Yeah, me
There's
too.
Nothing that Hackman or Cryer could have done to help those scenes.
I will say, Cryer, I don't think got any direction.
Oh, no.
And the thing is, I like John Cryer. And certainly he's iconic for people of our age because he was fucking Ducky. It's like I should explain. A phrase like fucking Ducky, I'm afraid some of you don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Pretty in Pink, y'all.
Yes,
Go and watch Pretty in Pink.
And he's great. And I always liked him in everything. But in this, they didn't write good comedy for him to say. And then they give him, I'm pretty sure, like, well, you're going to be kind of like a modern kid, but you're also the nephew of, Lex Luthor. So he's doing like a Valley thing, which does not come naturally to him. And it comes and goes. Like occasionally it's just like, hey, Uncle Lex. But sometimes it's like, oh, this is awesome. And you're like, oh, that.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah. And oh no, over and over again, which wasn't funny even once at all.
No.
Oh, no.
So bad.
No, none of the comedy bits in this work at all. And in the original movie, Luthor is a quipping, brilliant guy. He does deliver comedy lines, but the doofus, the cartoony doofus, is Otis. By this movie, they've decided that Luthor is a comedic doofus. I mean, there's other than him doing super science, which doesn't make any sense and is stupid in this movie, he's a doofus. They even use the Otis theme music anytime we go to
That's
Luthor.
right. I know that too. And that was true. That was true in Superman 2 as well. Like whenever he's there, that became
but
his
at least
theme.
in Superman 2, Otis is still around for a little bit, and then he's got Miss Tessmacher with him. And you could go, well, that's any time that criminals are being stupid. Luthor should be above that. Unfortunately here, it's awful.
And that is 100%, I'm sure, a symptom of the fact that John Williams did not want to come back to work with anybody but Richard Donner.
They just used the themes. Yeah. They just, and then Courage just remixed them or whatever, or rearranged. But again, it's awful work. It's awful all the way through.
Yeah.
So Luthor is on a chain gang, and the criminals are making fun of him for humming Mozart because he has taste and intelligence. And then Lenny Luthor shows up.
Oh, no.
Chad, you remember Lenny Luthor, introduced, I believe, in 1947's issue of Action Comics number... No, Now, Lex did canonically have a sister that got introduced years later, Lena Luthor, who made it to the Supergirl TV show. I was like, what? They actually are using Lena Luthor? Okay.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
But yeah, other than that, Lenny is totally a fabrication of this movie, and he shows up in this ridiculous cartoony Cadillac that has his name on embossed on the side, and he shows up, and the whole gag is, hey, am I in the wrong place? I've gotten turned around. And these literal community theater, probably the funniest people in their suburb community theater troops, playing the guards, like, well, I've never seen a car like that before. What's that? I've heard about that stereo system. It's deep. And then Lenny's like, do you want to hear it? Go ahead, take a seat. And he puts them in the car, and Lex is watching, and he goes, all right, and then use your special remote control to lock the doors and put the top up, and the music's playing, and they're locked into the chairs, and then use the whole car to launch it, and that'll kill the guards.
Yeah.
Why would you do that? If you just wanted to kill the guards, why
just lock them in the car,
blow up? Yeah.
Right.
Or maybe the stereo like fries their brains, and then you just pull the bodies out. I'm like, that's a waste of a really stupid looking, but rich car. I'm like, Lex, what are you going to do now? Get in the prison van? Is that how you're going to escape? Is the prison van? Because a nice car just drove up, but you just used it to kill two people, and it blew up. And
of course, they don't actually die because they appear at the the classic cartoon. Yeah. Nobody gets killed by an explosion. They just get really dusty and dizzy.
Well, similar to people wanting the Kryptonian villains, I guess, to have died by sliding down those chutes. I was hoping these two stupid guards had died in Lenny's car.
That's just more proof that people just don't get killed by falling or explosions. No. Anyway.
Yeah, there you go. No one dies in these things, even though Superman is so concerned later. I do love him emoting at Nuclear Man. Enough! The people!
Yeah, which is, it's like, let's bring that line back from Superman 2, which was, right, the same thing he says when they're about to throw the bus.
But the people were just being comedically made uneasy. I mean, like, he's lifted a bunch of us with telepathy? And then Superman's like, no, save them. And then he, with telepathy, lowers them? What the fuck is it?
Another made-up power. Yep.
Jesus movie. God.
Yep.
Stop, that's enough.
I still like our watchers and our friends, but you made me do this. There's like a TV broadcast of the president saying, all he's saying is, he's not saying we're going to war. He just goes, well, peace talks have broken down, and I'm going to have to dedicate ourselves to building our nuclear. It's like, sorry guys, but we're going to have to protect ourselves with more nuclear armaments or something. And for some reason, this is something a 5th grade class is watching live in their classroom.
Yeah.
The teacher turns off the TV. And this, I love. This is so terrible and stupid. She should be fired. She goes, wow, that's not good news. And then she looks at the class and goes, what should we do about it?
Yeah, right.
5th graders. They're like, well, we could write to our congressman. And someone's like, congressman can't do anything. He's got no power. And then Jeremy, who's looking out the window, and I think she goes, what about you, Jeremy? And he turns around, and maybe the kid actor had a terrible line delivery of all of his lines, because I think he's totally ADR'd for the whole movie.
He is, yeah.
Yeah, sure. But he turns around and he's like, and he's not even like an adorable moppet. He's a dick, too. He's like going, we should write to the one guy who could do something about it. And they're like, who? He's like, Superman.
I tell you who I'd write a letter to that would do some good.
Okay. Anyway, so this is literally the crux of our plot, is delivered in ADR from a kid actor. And the impetus is a 5th grade teacher going like, what are you going to do about nuclear armament?
What are you going to do?
What are you going to do about it? I guess I could chain myself to the front of a nuclear facility or something. I'm only 11. What do you want from me? And now, do we cut back to Luthor with the hair?
Let's not worry about the exact order. We haven't stuck to the exact order in any of these things.
I know. And literally, me, when I rewatched it, I just let it play in the background. Like, I was doing other things and looking up, going, right, just to remind myself, yeah, that happened, and I still don't like it.
Yeah.
And you at home, don't write us going, you guys got out of order. I watched it twice, and this is still jibber jabber to me. We're just going to bounce off plot points, and you'll just have to deal with it.
How dare you disrespect Superman 4?
Actually, Ibrahim, I am sorry. Ibrahim Mustafa, if my not getting all the plot points right is bothering you, he loves that movie.
I know. I was going to ask you, have you had this
Haven't
conversation
had a chance
with
to
him
talk
yet?
to him, and John is trying to put something together. Like maybe we have
Have an
a sit-down
intervention?
discussion, an intervention. Yeah, it's like, Ibrahim, we're your friends. We care about you. But good Lord, man. I get what he's getting at. There are elements in this that are much closer to the comics than anything
Sure.
you get.
Sure.
It's just so shoddily done. Okay.
Mhm.
So Jeremy's letter gets sent to the Daily Planet, handed off to Lois. Lois hands it off to Clark. Like, you know him too. You should read this. And he's like, Dear Superman, couldn't you get rid of nuclear weapons? And he's like, I have never thought about that. And he takes too long, apparently, to answer the kid, or he's debating it internally. And Lacey or her father latch onto it like, oh, that's great. We'll put out a paper that says Superman to kid. Fuck off.
Yeah. Drop dead or pound sand or whatever it says.
Pound sand.
Something along those lines, which kind of forces his hand.
I wish it were pound sand.
I think that there may actually have been, there's a lot that was cut out of this film that canon were planning to actually cut into Superman 5.
Well, there were supposed to be two
nuclear
creatures. Yeah. The first one was supposed to be very much like Bizarro.
Right. I've seen that footage. It's terrible.
Yeah.
It's worse than anything that's actually in the movie.
That's why they got rid of it.
But I think there may have been, I could be wrong about this. I think there may have been a scene where Superman actually does officially decline the offer. Said, no, I can't. There's a lot I can do.
Okay.
They just
regardless,
cut that part
it just, the
but
whole thing is like, that will be a sensational headline. And Clark's like, well, I don't think Superman actually did tell him to go pound sand. I don't believe that was something that Superman would say to a child.
No.
But this is the whole thing. So at this point, I don't know why, Warfield thinks this is such a big story that he flies the kid to Metropolis. And then I want to welcome you to Metropolis and say, sorry that Superman blew you off. But it looks like, again, it's taking place in the food court of a mall in Calgary. It's like, is there anything you'd like to say to Superman? And the kid actually goes, well, lip readers can tell what I'm really saying, but there's some ADR of some other kid who's doing my dialogue. But anyway, he's like, well, I wish Superman had listened to me or whatever, because it would have been cool.
I just said I wish Superman would have said yes.
And then Jimmy Olsen's been hired to take the kid around and get pictures of him on a whirlwind tour of Metropolis. Hey, you want some ice cream? Get some ice cream. I'll take a picture of you. That's good news. And then Superman shows up. Is like, hey, Jimmy, you mind if I borrow Jeremy? I hope that name doesn't confuse anybody, but let me borrow Jeremy. Let's talk. And in fact,
we got to back up because there's some stuff that I'm realizing that we skipped now.
Did we skip the aerobics scene? Because that's important.
Yeah, let's not miss that. Superman as Clark in all of these scenes is agonizing over what to do about this.
Yes, as you would.
One of the stupidest things he does. There is one really nice shot, which I'd seen clips of the shot elsewhere. I didn't even know it was in this movie. It doesn't look like it looked like it's from another movie where it's not, it's in this movie. It was just a nicely directed shot where he's,
you were surprised. Oh my God,
like,
Sidney
what am I going to do? I think it's right after that headline came out of Superman tells Jeremy to pound sand. And he goes,
take a flying.
He goes to the window and he takes his glasses off and he's sitting there and he's like very pensively staring out the window. I was like, I like that shot. That's pretty cool.
I will say this doesn't need to be said. Christopher Reeve, and this is 4 movies in, he looks great.
He does.
I mean, even if the suit isn't, I was just like, he was even growing into even more of like the character. I'm like, you're not so young anymore, but you're fitting Superman so well. Too bad that's in this goddamn movie.
Yeah. So then I can't remember which happens first. He goes to the Fortress of Solitude.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Talks to his mom. That's when we have the silly scene with the elders and everything.
Portrayed.
Then and I hate this. This is the worst thing I think that happens in the movie.
Wow, that is a big statement.
Lois comes over to his apartment. This is, I mean, I always say it's kind of
I
cool.
know.
We actually get to see Clark's apartment in Metropolis for the first time, and you get to see all the stuff he has in the wall, and that's kind of cool.
Can I nerd out?
Yeah.
That's not his address.
It's not on Clinton Street.
No, 344 Clinton Street, and I believe it's apartment 3D or 3C.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was like, you fuckers. However, it is our first time just seeing where Clark lives, and I had pushed this aside. I'm glad you brought it up. This is a bad scene. Except I kind of like a little bit of when he's like, you remember? And she goes, I remember everything.
Yeah. Well, let's tell the whole thing, because
let's tell it.
This to me is the pinnacle of the worst shit in this movie.
Man, because I think that is such a big competition, but I see where your money is on.
So Lois comes over to his apartment, and she knows that he's kind of down in the dumps.
She looks after him a couple of times in this movie.
Yeah, and that's nice. I like the relationship they have as friends in the movie is nice.
Yeah.
But so he walks her out onto onto his little patio balcony.
Yeah.
And just without even telling her what's going on, just jumps off, terrifying her. And he does the super speed changes to his Superman outfit, and she goes, "Oh, right, you're Superman." And then they literally fly around, not around the city, but fly all the way around the world.
It's so pointless. We don't need another, look at us flying. And he literally does. There's dialogue where he goes, oh, look over there.
Look at that. And this movie, instead of the first movie, where he seems to accidentally go over while they're having the romantic flyover Metropolis, he deliberately drops her in this one.
Yeah, he does.
Bye.
And then she flies on her own.
Yeah.
For a bit.
Yeah. She glides or something. Yeah.
Yeah. And he goes, how'd you like your first solo flight? And I'm like, did you help her? What?
So, and the whole point of this apparently was that he just wanted to have a heart-to-heart with her as Superman, which he could have done without, he could have just showed up as Superman.
Yep.
And without going through that.
Yep.
So she gives him a pep talk, which is what he wanted. Very selfishly putting her through that just so he could get a pep talk from her.
He also wanted a handy, but they thought that would be inappropriate.
So yeah, and then as you were saying, he goes, "Oh, you don't even know my real name," and she goes, "Yeah, dude, Kal-El." He goes, "Oh, you remember? I remember everything."
I remember everything.
I'm thinking, do you? Because when he erased your memory, you were absolutely distraught, and that's why he erased your memory. Remember?
Yeah.
You don't remember everything. So then he kisses her again. He's like, "Oh, you do remember. You do remember. We can't have that." All right, back to status quo.
Oh, wait, how many kisses was that? Do you remember or not right now? I do remember. Okay, one more. What's going on?
It's so bad. It's so
terrible.
Terrible.
The thing is, you would think that a filmmaker or screenwriter would realize that was a weakness of the first two movies, which are still great, but it's like, yeah, most people don't like that. That didn't work. Instead, they're like doubling down. They're like, no, that's now part of the canon. He just kisses away memories.
I've seen other people theorize this too. When this movie came out, this was in summer of 1987.
Yeah,
Nathan was visiting me.
Hey, Nathan,
in Houston.
Shout out to Nathan. Right
before I was about to go off to college at University of Texas for 2 months, and then we decided to go see Superman 4, and I think I kind of figured it wasn't going to be good, and so we went to go see it. I think at the Galleria. I can't remember exactly where it was.
It's okay.
We were both kind of like, and I remember thinking, well, it's definitely more like that. That was definitely more like the comics I read in the 1970s than the first two movies.
You knew it was bad.
And but I remember Nathan and I talking about this, because I was theorizing because of that scene, and also the scene that happens later where she brings Superman's cape to Clark, saying, "I know you're close to Clark." I think maybe I was thinking, does she subconsciously? Is she just pretending to not remember?
No, I think that was the implication. I honestly think that's the implication. Maybe it isn't wiped from her memory, but maybe there's like a block, and there must be some sort of. It's just back in the recesses, and he kind of has to cue it, And I think flying or falling or something, she'll be like, "Whoa, oh yeah, Clark, okay, Kal-El, yeah, gotcha." So I think they're trying to imply that it's always there.
And you'll do the right thing no matter what it is. You always have.
He gets the advice from Lois, which is follow your gut. You've got a good gut, you should follow it.
You gotta go with your gut.
And he's like, Okay, thanks, Lois. I guess I should tell that kid not to pound sand. You know what I'll do, Lois? I'll find that kid while he's pounding sand, and I will grab his hand and I'll say, no more. No more sand pounding. Because I think that is the deal. He's heard from the elders, which were bullshit. And actually, I'm glad that was the last vestige of Krypton. If it's just, oh, by the way, she, with her British accent, just like Marlon Brando, says Krypton.
Krypton, your mother planet.
Krypton. I know. I didn't notice that. Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, oh, maybe that's it. It's just like the accent. It's like, here on Krypton.
You are the only survivor of the planet Krypton.
I think in the first movie, the people in the council say that too.
I tell you, Krypton is simply shifting its orbit.
But you know that started with Marlon like refusing to pronounce it, right?
Yeah.
Just like, I think I should be a bagel.
Yeah.
I think you should say Krypton.
Yeah, I could be a suitcase or a bagel. No one knows what a Kryptonian looks like. Yeah, they do. Comics have been published for a long time. Plus a bagel.
The only guy who didn't go along with it was Christopher Reeve, because he still says Krypton.
Well, good.
I come from a planet called Krypton.
Krypton.
Huh? Krypton. Huh?
Krypton.
So with that advice is when he decides to break up Jimmy and Jeremy's date.
Hi, Jeremy.
And then he goes, Jeremy, you want to walk with me? Then it becomes literally like Willy Wonka. Then it becomes like people just start following well, I mean, if I had been a kid and I saw Superman, I'd be like, why can't I walk with them too? So yes, suddenly a whole group is following him, and he's supposedly walking to the UN, which again seems to be located close to the Orange Julius.
Good luck, Superman.
Thanks.
I like that he's given it plenty of thought, because he is now just intruding.
Yeah, he's just showing up. They don't know. Nobody knew he was going to be there, but it seems it's unfolding as if they all knew.
Superman is very cordial and he's very polite. He's like, Madam Secretary, I'm sorry. I know I'm not on the docket for today, but would you mind if I speak to the assembled? And she's like,
in that case, you will need a sponsor.
And then all the representatives of all the countries are like, I will, yes, he's good with me. And then Superman gets up there and says, hey, everybody, here's the deal. Nuclear weapons suck. So I'm going to take all of your nuclear weapons. And I'm paraphrasing. He actually said, nuclear weapons really suck. And I'm going to get rid of all of them. And what's very unrealistic about this, they do address it in dialogue later. I was surprised that they actually did address it. But he says this as an independent who mostly hangs out in the United States. Every single person from every country in the world goes, yay!
Huh?
Yeah.
And Jeremy, I think, is sitting on Lois's lap. But anyway, she's like, it's a very important moment. And he's like, he's really doing it. Yay. And then Superman's like, great. You guys got no problem with that? Perfect. And then montage of him getting rid of nuclear weapons.
In a big fishing net. Which is very comic book.
It's very comic book. How else are you going to, in one big, package, shoot them all, just throw them into the sun? But yeah, so he goes around the world, collects nuclear missiles, and isn't, challenged, and he just puts them all in a big net and whirls them into the sun.
Very interesting arrangement, though. He has, like, apparently the agreement was, everybody just launch them. I'll catch them and put them in a net.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, nothing will go wrong. Don't worry about it.
I don't know why you needed them to launch them. He could just kind of just like, I'll just grab
just come and get them.
Yeah, he could just come and get them. It doesn't matter. We would lose the awesome scenes of whenever he grabs them in space, hearing the dunk as he holds them.
Yeah, we need the dunks.
Because we need the dunks. How else we know that he had made contact? So yeah, he swings them in a big fishing net, shoots them off to the sun. And yeah, I know he's done equally ridiculous stuff in the comics, and I love them in the comics of the day. And actually, I don't have a huge problem with this. It's just the simplicity of, well, nuclear weapons are dangerous for the entire world. Everyone's afraid of them, so I'll just get rid of them. That making him kind of a dictator, or at least a person's like going, you have no say in this, and I have the power to do it, so I'm going to do it.
When that, like you said, I mean, that is it's a premise it's a promising premise that could have been really cool if they had written it well. But
yes, exactly.
Nothing in this movie is written.
No,
close to being
the line that it's during the double date, because Lois is kind of dating, but is also going to like do another interview while they're on this date. So she's like, and no one challenged you? And he goes, actually, I was surprised. No one did. So they did like address, like, there was no country that was like, hey man, you ain't taking our weapons. You back off. You know what I'm saying? So now the whole thing is Luthor has this idea. Since the world has been disarmed, he's going to make crazy money by palling around with nuclear arms dealers. And we have the guy from every movie of the period. He was in Raiders.
William Hootkins.
Yeah.
Red 6 standing by.
It's Porkins.
Got a problem here. Jet, I can hold it.
It's Porkins. He's back.
No.
Top men.
Yes, top men. And this time he's one of the arms dealers.
Nuclear strategist for America's top think tank.
Yeah, so that was the only delightful thing. I was like, oh, it's William Hootkins.
Yes, but what's in it for you?
But Jim Broadbent.
And Broadbent, yes.
Jim Broadbent is there.
Snip, slice.
Not given enough to say,
No,
unfortunately.
and I know that he's still fresh, or at least film-wise, because he had already been doing plenty of stage and TV in Britain. But he's their French arms dealer, and he gets one line of dialogue with a bad French accent.
Why should we do a deal with a notorious scoundrel like you?
And then there's a Russian.
What is your plan?
So we've got a UN, and he's like, "We're going to take over the world," and with all the missiles, and they're like, "Well,
I think isn't the thing that they're pissed off because they have no business anymore? Nobody wants to buy from them. That's the thing. So they're like, they want to kill Superman. That's the.
But yes, killing Superman and then getting the arms race underway again, I guess, is the plot.
That's the thing. They want to get rid of Superman. That's why they're there.
Oh, but they're like, how are you going to do that? And he goes, well, I'm working on a means of creating life, Dr. Frankenstein style. And I think maybe the hair happened before this. I need to talk about the hair. Okay, so there is a museum that has a Superman display. Oh, I'm sorry. There is a mall food court that has a big Superman statue in it. It's the same goddamn mall. You look in the background, there are people getting their ears pierced over at that place. Right next to it is an Ocean Pacific because it's 1984. You can go in and get you some cool tops. And over there is the arcade. That's me over there playing Centipede. Awesome. So anyway, this museum, this lady's like, Superman graciously gave us one of his hairs that we're using to hold up this 1,000-pound weight. That's just to show you how strong he is. Even a single hair can hold it. And they're like, ooh. And then she's like, walking on. And then Luthor and Lenny show up. That would have been a great show. Luthor and Lenny show up. And Luthor just has, he's just got some
massive pliers in his coat.
He's got bolt cutters.
That's all you need, apparently, to cut.
An invulnerable Superman hair that's holding 1,000-pound weight you could just use bolt cutters.
Yeah.
Like, why is he like going like the edge of this is coated with fine kryptonite dust or something? I mean, anything, but no, he just goes clip.
Yeah, that would have made a lot more sense if it was actually like scissors made out of kryptonite or something.
Like if anyone thought about something.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, he just clips it and then is like, plus I like the fact they're able to just like smash a display, get the hair and get out. No one's bothering him.
Nobody cares.
No one cares. So he goes, this one hair has DNA of Superman. I now have Superman's DNA, and I'm going to, since I've never been in these film series presented as a scientific genius, other than some computer stuff I did in the first movie, I'm now a geneticist. And so he goes, look, Superman gets his powers from the sun. I guess he figured that out or something. The yellow sun energy gives him his power. So we're going to use his DNA. We're going to put it in this box with stuff. And, oh God, them putting in the little costume. It's like, this is going to create a powerful being. And we're also going to add his costume and its little like doll clothes. And Lenny goes, that's not going to cover much. He goes, it'll grow like him. Why is this something that needed to be addressed at all?
I know.
And also, why is there Nuclear Man? Why isn't he just Bizarro? Other than he's literally named after the thing that the movie's about, nuclear weapons and the fear of nuclear. So nuclear man. Okay. But if you're going to get a bodybuilder from Venice Beach with a mullet whose name is Mark Pillow, and he's going to be your villain, dude, just make it fucking Bizarro.
I guess, well, in order to shoot a scene, I mean, the right way to do it obviously would have been to have Christopher Reeve play another evil version of himself, which I don't think they had the budget to do in this, to film scenes like that.
I mean, they have stuntmen replacing them for all the other scenes. It could have just been the exact same thing. Swapping out.
If they shot it differently, they could have.
And Bizarro has makeup, which would be it could be a mask that's Christopher Reeve-esque. I don't think you'd have to do much.
Right.
And then it could be literally ADR of Christopher Reeve going like, "Me love you, me not kill you," and then be like, "Dude, that's all I need." Backwards S, bring it. Instead, we get this. So this little box has genetic material that will somehow grow into a new super powered person. And the only thing missing is you need all this nuclear radiation that you can only get in the sun. So let's go to a missile launch. And again, I worry about the world that Superman lives in, because if you go to a costume store and get a cool hat, people will just think you're a general and can walk into a military base and just go, don't listen to them, fire it at these new coordinates. Oh, they say the weather's bad, we can't launch a missile. Do you know the code? Blah, blah, blah. So, we do. Then fire away, boy. And that's Luthor being like, I'm a general. Great. Yeah. It takes nothing to get into a military base in that world.
And this is where it's funny to me. Like they obviously they don't give a heads up to Superman about this. They just fire it, and he's just there.
Yep, I'm on it. I must have missed one.
This is what Superman does.
He does. The budget's so bad that a few times Christopher Reeve is just doing this, and we're led to believe he's flying.
Right.
That's about what the movie's like.
I know.
He flies out, he grabs that missile, which has that box in it, and he tosses it in the sun, which basically means he fell into Luthor's trap. And then we see an animated ball of fire come out of the sun, spin around, turn into a fetus that grows into a Venice Beach bodybuilder with a mullet. Here's what they should have done as far as design. I'm not saying that the Nuclear Man costume is bad. It's a fine looking super outfit, but they may have thought about, we're going to be shooting blue screen, and the orange color on the Nuclear Man outfit when it's under blue screen basically looks like his skin tone. It literally looks like a naked man is flying around for a lot of, anytime he's flying, it looks like his own natural skin. So you're like going, Jesus, guy in a slingshot bikini is out there flying around. I was like, that orange doesn't look orange anymore. It just looks like skin, and it looks disturbing. Oof. Ugh. I don't like that. I don't like that at all. But anyway, so Nuclear Man is somehow born, and somehow, again, I know that comics don't worry about this too much, but there could have been a toss-off line of Luthor saying, like, similar to Kryptonian technology that I figured out, is like, I put something in there that will give him a quick upgrade in language and intelligence or whatever, know who he is, know where to come. Like when he is born, he'll know where his dad is or whatever. Instead, Nuclear Man forms out of the sun immediately with the little costume on that they put in the box, and he knows to fly to Metropolis and to a particular skyscraper, and then he shows up, and Luthor's like, there he is, there's my boy. He's like, nope, I'm better than you, you're not my dad. And he goes, oh, let's talk about that. Come over here, Nuclear Man. Oh, by the way, we should say, I guess Luthor's own DNA must be mixed in. And actually, the comics did use that later on. Let's not forget that Connor Kent, that was introduced later, was a genetic blend of Luthor and Superman.
I am the father now. You have my voice.
And I feel really bad for Gene Hackman. I kept, for the whole movie, imagining Gene Hackman in a little vocal booth.
Yeah.
At on the one afternoon, it could have not even an afternoon, 30 minutes on a lunch break, going like, where is the woman?
Yeah.
But anyway, so Nuclear Man speaks with like gruff Luthor voice.
No, you have my voice.
So Nuclear Man's like, I'll do whatever I want. He goes, yeah, come over here though, let's talk about it. and he happens to walk off the balcony and into the apartment and into a shadow and immediately shuts down.
Yeah.
Going, this is a bad design for a super villain that literally any shade at
worst
all.
weakness ever.
Nobody's perfect.
It's like the Wicked Witch of the West in water. Like
The whole thing with the fight later, he could have taken off his cape and held it over Nuclear Man. Nuclear Man would have shut down. He could have grabbed an umbrella. That would have been the end of the fight.
Yes.
Also, why did he drop him on the dark side of the moon? Or he drops him on the moon, but then the moon, rotates into sun view. I'm like, there's a dark side of the moon. Why not put him over there? It'll never see the sun. He'll never wake up again. Anyway.
Yeah.
Nuclear Man is powered by the sun, and he gets into shade and he shuts down. And then Luthor is proud of that. He goes, you see, he can't control us because I know his weakness, which is darkness. And then he's like, oh, cool. Okay.
Oh, no.
And then, I don't know, some other stuff happens, and then the movie ends.
Nice try, Brendan.
There are plenty of little fight scenes. Well, I don't remember what the first fight is. I don't remember what that is.
Okay, well, I'm trying to get this in order as best I can. They have this battle over the city. I think it's the first thing that happens. This is what interrupts his double date.
Oh, yes, the double date scene.
I gotta go.
I'm sorry, Lois, but an emergency's come up. I'll have to go.
Then they're flying around over Metropolis, and this is one of the funniest things, unintentionally funny things happens in the movie where Nuclear Man goes and picks up the Statue of Liberty and just flies it over the city. And then Superman goes and catches it and then flies it back. It's just, there's a lot of this going on. Like, no,
I've brought this up before, but there are times when, especially in action movies, where someone does something that's just, it's ill-considered and stupid and leads to nothing. And I always jump to the Chappelle Show skit with Rick James, where he comes in with the muddy boots and gets on Eddie Murphy's white leather yo couch.
Yeah.
Because the whole time it was like when he grabbed the Statue of Liberty, he's like, yo, Statue of Liberty.
Yeah.
And it's a bad prop too. Nuclear Man and Superman both transport the statue, and because they can't build a Statue of Liberty prop, they're holding her by the hand that's holding the placard. And so that's all we're seeing. And it's a weird, like, why would you grab anything from that? But that's what the movie's doing. So he's like going, I've got the statue.
Yeah.
And then Superman's like, nope, I've got it. And now I'm putting it back. Great.
It really seemed like you're just watching two kids playing in the yard with a toy and they're fighting over a toy. Like, no, you can't have it. Come back here. That's mine.
Yo, Statue of Liberty.
It's so bad.
It is bad. Oh.
So this leads to, they fight over the Metropolis Bay or whatever they call it in the canon, which there is no canon in this canon film.
No.
So, all right.
You just muttered a really good line. I was like, that was good. You just tossed
I didn't mean
off.
that to be.
There was no canon in this canon film, and that's true.
So right as Superman's flying the Statue of Liberty back to where it's supposed to be, he gets. They tussle again and he gets scratched and he's like, and he's suffering.
And this movie could have used a fight coordinator because, again, not both actors, actor and stunt guy, Mark Pillow, are trying to sell us on superpower battles. It just doesn't look good. It just looks dumb. And Chris is like struggling. I'm like, yeah, this isn't being.
And he just barely manages to get the statue back where it belongs. And then he collapses. And then they fight in this really cheap looking set that's supposed to be the base of the statue.
It's not even real grass.
And he gets kicked into space or something. We can't see him. And this is the one shot, the aftermath of this where his cape is fluttering down. That's a nice idea. Having the cape be this thing is left behind. Nobody knows where he is.
Yeah. Everyone assumes that Superman may be dead.
So I did like that one little bit.
No, I liked that too. And the scene with the cape, where when Lois comes in and she's genuinely upset, and then she sees it because Warfield bought it cheap after it fell on the Statue of Liberty and gives it to Lacey. Lacey has a turn. She's never been a villain really, but she does become a sincere person by the end, and she's against her father.
She actually has an arc, which is pretty amazing. Anybody has an arc in this film.
Yeah, she's like, I don't think I should have this. And then Lois comes in and she's like, and of all the people who should, that was great.
You don't deserve this or whatever.
Yeah,
you have no right to
the
this.
cape.
That
was good.
That was
I like
good.
that too.
Yeah.
So Clark isn't dead. He is suffering like a flu in his apartment, and Lois shows up, And she lets herself in because he's like, no, I'm sorry. And she's like, I ain't taking that shit. And she uses her credit card
to
break into his apartment. And he just has time to get his glasses on. And he's all, bundled up. And she's like, dude, you've been gone for 3 days. And she goes, I get you not returning other people's calls, but not mine. I was like, that's good. Yeah. She's like, you should be returning my calls because I'm Lois fucking Lane. And I was whoa. I was like, is that why it's PG-13? She said one fucking.
Yeah, I know. And again, this is one scene I kind of liked.
I did too, because it's just them.
Yeah.
In character. And she's like, oh, you look terrible, da da da. And he's like, yeah, I just and she babies him a little, and she's like, you can't give up, and Superman, wherever he is, I hope he knows that he's loved and that I love him.
And she does have a line here which speaks to what we were saying earlier, the theory that she does actually
she kind of knows.
She says, I just feel like I need to give this to you.
Yes. And she also says, she just goes, for the longest time, I've always felt that I know when Superman needs my help.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, just like I kind of know that you need my help. It's like, I wonder if she knows. But yeah, so she leaves the cape with him, and he's like, I can't give up. And then they clearly must have cut something from this movie, because he has a flu and or he's got some illness. But the next time we see him, he's
aged like 80 years.
Yeah, it goes beyond. They've done like old age makeup, and he's patchy, bald, white hair, and you're like, what's going on? That illness must have really got him. It's, again, I'm going to give you this crystal, this thing. This is the last of it. This is the last of it. You'd use this, and Krypton's gone forever.
So apparently it took him that long to say, okay, now that I'm about to die, I'll finally use this thing I had with me the whole time. So yeah. Anyway.
And it works. And Nuclear Man, would you like to step outside? Also, Nuclear Man, for no reason other than plot, when he's at Luthor's, he sees the paper with Lacey on it, and he goes, I want that woman.
Yeah, it's like King Kong and whatever the woman's name is in King Kong that he gets obsessed with. What's it?
Annie Darrow is the character name.
Sorry.
Wow. The stuff I have in here.
So this is where we get to the scene I was about to jump to and I had to back up. So he comes to the planet and he's trying to find her, trying to find Lacey.
Where is the woman? Give it up. You'll never find her.
And that's when they have this weird battle, and Nuclear Man's using his powers to blow. It's pretty devastating. He's like really tearing the street to pieces and blowing shit up and everything. And it takes a long time for Superman finally to go, okay, that's enough. He lets it go on for a very long time before he says, okay, the people.
Don't do it, the people.
Yeah, the people. You don't get it. I care about the people.
And the weird levitating thing you talked about happens. So it's like, what the hell?
And then I think it's in this where he goes, your Great Wall of China.
Oh, that's right. Was it before this that happens?
I can't remember. I think and where's the volcano in
there's all that too, yeah.
Rome.
Yeah, we're skipping over a lot.
Italy. It doesn't matter. Again, we get these action beats of Nuclear Man destroys a chunk of the Great Wall of China. Superman shows up and has a new power, which is looking at stuff and moving it.
It's straight up sorcery is what this is. He looks at the wall and he fixes it.
The thing with the Great Wall, I'm like, all you had to do, and I know you have no budget, do some quick animated blue-red streaks to indicate, super speed. That's all you had to do.
You know what's funny?
All you had to do.
The hilarious thing about that is I think this was completely concocted in post, because they have a shot of him just going.
Yeah, he's looking.
He's just waving at people, and they said, okay, let's take that shot and put ray beams and then animate the wall. That was Christopher Reeve probably had absolutely nothing to do with that idea. It's so hilarious. And why?
That's this movie cellophane-esque.
They could have just moved on. They could have just left the wall being destroyed and said, let's move on to the next scene.
Superman repairs and replaces, but again, you know what you even could have done? You could have had Nuclear Man destroy it, and then you could have had a paper headline just in the background going, Superman repairs Great Wall of China. You didn't even need to show it. If you can't come up with an effect or explanation that works with the budget you have, just have someone go, it's a good thing he fixed it. Fuck. there's also a volcano that Nuclear Man causes in Italy, and lava starts running down the streets. And I say Rome, but it could just be, I don't know.
Oh, right. This is where the Italians get.
Yeah. And this is, I do like it, but I think it's hilarious. There's a group of, I mean, again, the rest of the city, you're on your own. But at least there's this group of 7 people, and he's going to save them. And they are such a cartoonish cross section of Italians. There's like a priest, there's like a Mario type person, but they just are all gathered in front of a doorway while lava runs down the street. That's when I said before, it's like, maybe go inside.
Yeah.
But they're standing there like, we're helpless. We can't. That has a knob. I've never seen one before. And Superman comes down, and I love him using, I mean, he uses his heat vision in this movie. He's using super breath. He blows the lava,
here we do have super
cools
breath,
it. And they're like, thank you. And then he's like,
il mio lavoro, non fa niente. Arrivederci.
And very fluent Italian. Christopher Reeve, no doubt, studied. And he's like, I'm going to make it sound good.
So that is one of maybe 2 or 3 things the movie does right.
Yeah. The fact that he will talk to them in their own language, because Superman knows every language. He just does.
You win. I'll take you to her.
Oh, in the scene where he goes after Lacey, the whole thing is the way he stops him is he tricks Nuclear Man into an elevator. Then, because the elevator is dark, Nuclear Man shuts down, which allows Superman to pull the elevator out of the entire building, take it to the moon, drop it in the shadows of the moon. Hey, that's a great idea, Superman. Oops, the shadows. Uh-oh, because the moon rotates into view of sunlight. Nuclear Man wakes back up and
the
breaks
elevator's
out
not completely airtight. So...
No, it's not completely airtight. So
the sun's getting through.
The sun gets through, and so he's like, I'm back. And he just wants Lacey so bad, man. He actually does grab Lacey, takes her up into the atmosphere. Jesus Christ, she's hanging off his arm. There's no air. There's no air.
It's just another one. It's just like with the Statue of Liberty. He's like, I've got her. Yeah, I'm going to can't go over here. And then Superman says, no, I'm going to take it back.
Let go of my Lacey doll.
It's so childish.
I think he drops her and Superman saves her. I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah, well, they have that battle on the surface of the moon where Superman gets pounded into the... Yeah.
Oh, he gets pounded into sand.
Yeah. Lunar sand, yeah.
I ended up with like the junior novelization, something I got from Powell's when I worked there, the bookstore. It was one of the books that we could not buy, and the customer didn't want to take it back, so it was just left behind. I was like going, the junior novelization of Superman 4? All right, I'll take it. So I have it. The cover of it is that picture of him on the moon where he's straightening the flag that was left behind.
That's right.
And I know it's cheesy, okay? But Superman should have some cheese.
Yeah, that was nice.
He thinks he's dealt with Nuclear Man, so all he does is he straightens it, and he just stares at it admiringly. And I always love when Superman is like, yeah, I can just fly to the moon anytime and stand here, but mankind did this. Those were Americans. I'm proud of those guys. And it's a nice beat. And then, of course, Nuclear Man comes over and says, fuck your flag.
It's like you're fine.
You're going to have to hit the button on this one a lot. I keep saying the naughty words.
So how does he eventually overpower him?
Oh, yeah, the forced eclipse.
Yes.
It's just as dumb as anything else.
It is. Extremely stupid. Anyway, he dumps him into a nuclear plant.
And drops him into what I think, it's so hilarious. It's like there's this open thing that goes into a reactor, and it's just this open port, and Superman just goes into the port, drops him, and then it closes. Like this was all the plan. And then Nuclear Man, I guess, is dissolved and turned into nuclear power, because you see like the entire city, like the grid just goes off crazy. Like, we've got power for years.
It lights up this one nuclear plant lights up the entire world, basically.
But they've got Nuclear Man in there.
Yeah.
That's like double the nuclear.
As if there had been a blackout, which may have been, maybe that was a scene that got cut too. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a possibility.
So, I don't know.
Then he just goes for Luthor. Oh no, Luthor's escaping with Lenny in a very cool vintage car, and he's dressed like an idiot. They're like, Luthor is eccentric now. He dresses like an idiot. So he's got like that silver jumpsuit and like pilot cap on. I'm like, God, I hate everything about this. And when he's like, at least I've got my drums, ha ha. And God. Luthor grabs his drumsticks and tosses them. And he's like, are you worried that Superman's going to get you? He's like, he's too busy. He's got too many things to deal with. And he goes, we'll be out of here before you know it. And then, of course, the car starts leaving and they're like, uh-oh, Superman's underneath us. He caught us. Oh. Luthor is returned to the same exact chain gang. What I think is hilarious about that is they're in the same spot.
Yeah.
I'm like, haven't days gone by?
Yeah.
But it seems like it's 5 minutes later.
Yeah.
He drops Luthor off and goes, don't go anywhere anymore, Mr. Luthor. He's like, I'll see you in 20, Superman. Ha ha ha.
And the prisoners taunt him by whistling Mozart or whatever it was that he was doing before.
And then he takes Lenny, who is supposed to be a teenager and played by a guy who's probably 30 at this point. And he takes him to a boys' town, which that's disturbing. You have these young 10, 11, 12-year-old boys behind the fence, and a priest comes out. He's like,
every boy can be helped, Superman. I think you're right.
We can take good care of him, Superman. I'm going,
you should have taken him to the same coal mine he dropped Gus Gorman off.
Yeah. And they're like, Superman, you got to stop. There are other places. There are other places that need workers.
And Lenny Luthor again walks 9 miles to get to the next bus station.
Superman looks around and realizes he's brought every villain there. There's Parasite over there and Mongol and Mr. McJust Pitlick. They're all working at the same place. He's like, yeah, now that you mention it, I got to find other places to drop my villains. Anyway, so so Lenny Luthor is dropped off at a boys' town, and he's like, oh, this is cool.
You wouldn't happen to have a drum set, would you?
They take the Warfield banner off of the Daily Planet thing, and Warfield's like, what are you doing, Perry White? He goes, well, I learned a trick from you. It's called Hostile Takeover. I bought up all the remaining shares with all the money I've saved over the years, and I am now the majority shareholder of Daily Planet. I'm your boss. And he's like, what? Oh, everything's turning out so good.
And this is where they should have all turned to each other going, ha ha ha, and then it freeze frames is in the credits. Yeah.
And actually then Freeze Frame by the Jay Giles band would play. Freeze Frame, freeze. It's 1987.
Yeah, why not?
Then Superman has a speech at the end. That's where he goes, I thought I could solve your problems, but it turns out that's not the way to do it.
You people.
He's like, you're on your own.
Yeah.
Superman to Earth. Go pound sand.
Yeah, go pound sand.
So he tells him, like, that was a mistake. It's going to be up to you. But I know you guys can do it. I have faith in all of humanity. I'm proud to be a citizen of this world. And if the people want peace bad enough, they'll force their leaders to give them peace. By the way, good sentiments. Has not worked so far. But anyway, and then he just flies off into space. We didn't mention that most of the flying scenes, including one, they also have a stock one of Nuclear Man from the front, because there's a part where they, and they're badly blue screen. They look like flat cutouts. It's almost literally like they're on the end of popsicle sticks, and they're moving them toward the camera.
It's so terrible, yeah.
It is underdone by its budget, which there's that. A not good director and a bad script. I still like it this much more than Superman 3, simply because it's a Superman story from beginning to end. Give Ibrahim his due. It does have a super person battle, not a good one, but it's there. He's using all of his powers. All the tropes are here that you could possibly want. And I'm like, all right, yeah, okay. And Lois and Jimmy are back, and Perry's there. No mention of Lana. I don't think her job at the planet lasted very long.
No.
Just saying, maybe she married some rich guy. Yeah, so this was bad. And this is how we say goodbye to the man who, for me, is Superman, until proven otherwise. So it hurt. The other one was bad, but the other one had a kind of professional sheen to it.
Right.
This felt so low grade that I was embarrassed for everyone there.
Yeah. And I told somebody in the comments, it's like both 3 and 4, I don't really think of them as the same characters, because they're really not, especially the way he treats Lois in that scene that I disgusted with.
Oh yeah.
Just treats her like as I said in the comments to somebody else, we were discussing the scene. It's like he treats her basically like a wind up therapist doll. You know, not even treating her like a human being.
I think there's more of a connection in this one, certainly. I mean,
yeah,
I think
like the scene. Well, I mean, the scene where she comes with his cape. I mean, that was more that was better. That was way better than that. But the whole idea that
even with the terrible kissing or memory back and forth thing, there was that bond, and he does look wistful. But I think here they're just not. They don't have the space in this to address. Clearly, Clark is not into Lacey, so he basically. And
he's
that's
just kind of going along with it. Yeah.
He just goes along with it for the sake of that. And he's still mainly flirting with Lois as Superman. It's all the same stuff. It's just not as well done.
Mm-hmm.
These sequels, like I was saying, with the exception of 2, are like sequels. The Star Trek movies actually did kind of build one to the other, except for 1 to 2, because 1 is so odd. Really, 2 doesn't mention much about what happened in 1, but 2, 3, 4 are very tightly woven together. 5 does, and then 5 and 6, they basically did create continuity. But here they're just hitting the reset button. That's what I said. With between 2 and 3 of Superman, other than it's just like they start over. Like nothing. And this one does have the same thing of like, hey, you do remember me, don't you? Yeah, I do.
Yeah, that's the only thing that they carry over, but they don't really seem to know what to do with it.
No, they don't. And this movie isn't focused on that anyway. It's like, here's our big message, and here's the guy who looks like he's naked with a black cape fighting Superman. I really disliked it, guys. The good that I can find in there are just moments. They're just moments. And Christopher Reeve trying again, but looking kind of embarrassed. And, Margot Kidder doing from time to time great Lois stuff, but she's not given good material. The material lets them down. The budget lets them down. And Warner Brothers let them down. So, never again. Now let's turn our eyes to some excellent Superman and let's watch Supergirl.
Yet again, voted on by our intrepid listeners and viewers.
Yes. You're not gonna like it.
They know. Oh, they know we're not gonna like it, but that's what they're here for at this point. They're like,
guys, if you want to hear us talk about things we liked, there by the time this comes out, you'll have already seen us talk about Penguin and Agatha all along. We really liked, and we just did the live response to Creature Commandos, which you already posted today, so that's already out there. You've already seen that, and that's us talking about stuff we're excited by. It's not just a couple of guys being crabby about old material that is terrible. And again, if you love Superman 4, Ibrahim, if you love Superman 4, good on you. I'm not telling you you're wrong. This is all just like, I love this character so much, and it hurts to see it treated like this. And it hurts to see the cast that good. Ooh, Gene Hackman is checked out, man. And he's,
Yeah, if you liked it, or whether you agree with us or whatever, if you think we're wrong, tell us why. Tell us if there's something we missed, or there's some aspect of this that we're not seeing.
If you're
please tell us.
A representative of the sand we have been pounding, we would like to apologize for any violence that we have inflicted on your sand.
On your sand.
No, we do love to hear your opinions. Sometimes the opinions, and I get it, a lot of the opinions come from people who saw these when they were younger. I don't think that's a total dodge. I think that when you see things when you're younger, a lot of people's first Superman movie might have been Superman 3, and they may have loved it so much as a kid. They're like, that's my Superman, that they might even find Superman 1, Superman the movie. They might find that like, oh, that's weird. No, my guy hangs out with Gus Gorman. Some people might have seen Superman 4 when they were 8, and to them, this is their go-to. And again, that's valid. I am looking at this as a 55-year-old who has read Superman comics since I could read, and saw Superman the movie in theaters when I was 8. To talk about, that went into the DNA. It just built me there. I'm like, yes. And before that, I'd seen cartoons and Super Friends, and I'd watched episodes of George Reeves' Adventures of Superman and reruns. And so I'd seen other Supermen. It's just that on the big screen in bright colors and a perfect cast, done. done. That's
Yeah.
my man.
Yeah.
So my hopes are that we'll get just as getting excited with the new Superman that comes out, but I'm glad to close the book on this particular era and still hold Superman 1 and 2 very dear in my heart.
Yeah. Me too. So
okay.
There was a really great interview with James Gunn that came out. The interviewer asked him, like, what is in your Superman movie? What have you got in this movie that people haven't seen before? And Gunn said, well, it's the fantasy and science fiction elements of Silver Age. He specifically says Silver Age Superman. I think there's a lot of that in this that people haven't seen before. And I was like, oh, yes.
I mean, one thing we haven't seen before is a shared universe. I mean, we haven't. Yeah. Batman versus Superman and Justice League, they count, but I'm just removing that because that's another multiversal thing. I don't need to deal with that universe. Didn't enjoy it.
Yeah.
I think there will be joy, and I think there'll be fun. And I don't think it's going to be a comedy. James Gunn is smarter than that, but I think he was latching on to color, excitement, fun, and I think that'll be great.
Yeah.
I mean, if that's there, I'm totally down for it. Again, he's walking around in a world where all these other characters coexist. He will be talking to a Green Lantern and a Hawk person, and I'm like,
yeah,
dude, that's all I need.
He also addresses concerns that we ourselves have expressed about tone and whether or not this Superman was going to be in the same vein as Guardians of the Galaxy and Suicide Squad and all this stuff. And James pretty much outright says, no, this is different. And he says, I have different sides to myself too. And this movie is going to be very different from that stuff.
I think that, like I said, when we talked about Creature Commandos, I think that it's not a mistake that it got released before Superman, obviously, but I think the mistake could be it will encourage the already naysayers to say, like, this is all the guy can do. This is another James Gunn thing.
And he does confirm in this interview too, right up front. He says, yeah, that the reason why Creature Commandos is coming out first because it was already in development when they offered me the job.
I think it is just timing.
That's basically it, yeah.
Because we didn't mean for that to be like,
right.
And now the DC Universe launches.
Yeah.
It's like, no, Creature Commandos is still a weird corner of his new DC Universe.
Yeah.
It's just that
it just happened to be in the
it was ready
first, right?
Yeah, it came out of the oven first.
The one more thing you said that I know that we will both appreciate is he talks about the kind of quality control that he keeps a handle on, because he said, I'm not a micromanager guy. I don't go around telling everybody how to do, but he does like things to be consistent.
Yeah.
Even though there's not, they talk for a while about how, unlike with like the Marvel Infinity Saga, there's not one overarching storyline he's trying to tell here, but the stories are going to be consistent.
Well, actually, Marvel didn't start out with that either.
Right.
It started to cook as they went.
Yeah, but it's not. He says these stories are going to be self-contained things, but they are happening in the same universe, which means certain details are going to remain consistent. And that's the thing he tries to keep an eye on. And like for one thing, he said, like with Supergirl, we got to make sure the powers are the same. And he said it in such a way that makes like, is this something he actually had to? This sounds like something he actually fixed, because he was like, I'm a nitpicker for that stuff. You can't, Supergirl has the same powers as Superman. He says that briefly, and you see him kind of getting worked up, and I'm like, well, come on, James. Come on.
He wrote Superman, and Supergirl he greenlit, but he didn't write it. So I have a feeling, he had to solve those problems for himself, or choose, like, he can do this, and then the other person working on Supergirl. I'm not saying that they went crazy, but I guarantee probably he read the script. He's like going,
yeah,
I've already established that this is the extent to which this works. So can we tweak that to where it's, that consistency? It is, we've said before, it's almost impossible to have another Kevin Feige, who also didn't grow up with the stuff, but became like the gatekeeper for Marvel consistency and quality, and good on him. But having one central person, and I'm leaving Sarah, how do you pronounce his last name?
Who?
His partner, Peter.
Oh, Peter's
Safran?
Safran, yeah, Safran.
Okay. He's really not in on that creative stuff at all. That's not his role. So having one guy who does know the material, and doesn't have to write it all, but just has to be the guy in charge going, I'm going to look at every script. Just make sure, this doesn't contradict anything important.
They talk about this very thing in the interview too.
That's the dream job too.
Yeah,
where you sit there going like, really? Is that your take on Oa? I would just kill to be that dude.
But it totally makes sense that he would be looking after details like that, because he keeps saying that the stories are what are important. He says, we're not going to greenlight any movie until the script is exactly right.
That's all I can ask.
And little things like that, like this not being consistent with that, can break immersion, which can completely derail the whole story. So it makes sense.
He is being even more ambitious than Marvel. Marvel is the it's the successful accident where it kept building on its own successes, but didn't have a roadmap, but it worked. It just did. There's still things you can go, well, that doesn't really, how are you going to tie in those Netflix things? Well, you are? Okay, great. How does that? They'll figure it out, and they've been doing a great job. With this, he's being even more ambitious by deciding every aspect. The video games, the animated series, the live action TV shows are all in the same universe. And so therefore there has to be consistency across not just multiple projects, but multiple literal genres and formats. And that's, I don't think even Marvel's done that. Marvel's had all kinds of weird little things, but they're good about saying, no, this one's canon, this one's not, don't worry about that. And I'm sure they'll get to some point, but I just love the fact that he's going, no, man, if it says DC on it, it is canon. This is what we're all putting in there. And that means they have to have the world's biggest whiteboards. They're like going, yeah, but if you say that Jon Stewart's over here, fighting this intergalactic war for this thing, you're not going to have him over here for when the Justice League does a thing. So be sure you know where that happens in the story. Yeah. Again, it's a golden age. It's a golden age of superhero content.
So one thing to kind of tickle your or to pick your brain.
Okay, that's better.
Yeah,
I'd rather pick it than tickle it.
When he talks about the science fiction elements,
I'd rather tick it than pickle it.
The Silver Age science fiction elements that he said he's bringing to this Superman.
City of Kandor. Bottle City of Kandor, buddy. Man, holy hell! We already have crypto.
The first thing I thought of was the Fortress of Solitude and all the stuff he has there.
Phantom Zone projector.
Yes.
Legion flight ring.
Oh,
dude! I don't think he'll have it in the movie, but how awesome would it be if he's already met the Legion? He's got a Legion flight ring, which he doesn't need anyway. But oh my god, yeah, that kind of stuff. Rip Hunter, Time Master. Why not? And by the way, James Gunn, if you need me to write a pilot for a Rip Hunter Time Master show, I just love that. And don't fear magic in that universe. He already has Cersei in Creature Commandos.
Yeah.
But Dr. Fate, I did not enjoy necessarily Black Adam. But was it awesome that you had Pierce Brosnan as Dr. Fate?
That was the best thing about it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I at least liked we've got a Hawkman and we have Atom Smasher. And they gave us a lot of heroes in that movie. I was just like, it's just in the wrong universe.
The story was just, yeah.
But yeah, we could have the Tower of Fate. We could have, again, G.I. Robot, like we were talking about, opens the door to all the WW2 stuff. So Justice Society all day. John and I were talking the other day about whether it's a TV show or an animated series, they could just do Golden Age. They could have a World War II Justice Society show or movie, and I would eat that up.
Yeah.
All day long and ask for seconds. Are you kidding me? Yeah. Golden Age Sandman, Jay Garrick Flash running around. Woo!
Which
Wildcat.
We had a bit of that in Stargirl that you pointed out.
Yeah, and I enjoyed that. Yeah. Stargirl wasn't great, but I could turn off its connection to the Arrowverse or whatever and just watch it and go, holy crap, they're talking about Star Spangled Kid. Oh my God.
I forgot when you mentioned that a few months back. I did go and watch the first couple episodes of that. I was like,
it's a fun show.
It's one of the better Arrowverse things I'd seen.
It was. Swamp Thing was also pretty good. Doom Patrol was great. Some of those TV shows were really good.
Yeah.
It's just that I think weirdly tainted by the failure of the feature films. And you go, yeah, again, you guys keep trying to build a universe, but it ain't good.
Yeah.
The individual projects are fine, but your universe sucks.
Yeah. Sucks.
Your universe, man, it stinks.
And that's been talked about a lot, like because now that the
Superman
and
Lois
Lois has had its sunset episode.
That's the end of CW.
That's the end of it. Yeah.
CWDC.
And that show was only really loosely connected to the Arrowverse, because that Superman was not the same Superman that appeared in Supergirl.
Right. That's right.
It's like a
played by
universe,
the same actor, but different universe.
Different Superman. Yeah.
I mean, they multiverses, which a lot of people who aren't comic nerds, I do see a lot of blowback over the last a couple of years, because Marvel went real heavy into multiverse, and then DC did with the Flash and a bunch of other stuff. And people are like going, Jesus, man, anything, just don't mention a multiverse.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm a comic nerd. I don't care if 18 different Captain Americas start shaking hands. I'm there. As long as it's done well, I got no problem. And I have the kind of brain, after reading so many comics, I can sort it out. I can sit there going like,
sure.
Oh, so Keaton's universe over here. So yeah, if he meets Christian Bale, that's fine. I mean, they have their separate universes and they can comment on how different it is. It's awesome. I don't care. Yeah. That's why I'm sad that they felt they needed to cancel Superman and Lois, because they were worried about people getting confused about David Cornsweet's Superman.
And kind of similar to the last season of Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. You can tell that they were cramming several seasons into one in this one.
I need to catch up. I'm very behind.
And they did it. I didn't watch the entire final season. I watched the second half of it, and it is there are some very good episodes. There were some writing decisions they made in the first couple seasons that I didn't like, but overall, the way that Tyler Hoechlin portrays the character is really.
I didn't like him changing the name Clark Kent to Cuck Kent. I was like, come on, guys.
No, they really do. They do a good job with the character on that show. My only overall complaint with it really is like a lot of those shows, the teen
drama stuff.
Yeah, a lot of the soap opera stuff was just way too boring. But also the show just overall, unlike The Flash, which was very lighthearted and sometimes genuinely funny, this show was very somber throughout the entire run of it, and there's not a whole lot of levity in the show. It's
I
very
detected
dramatic.
that, but I bowed out after first season. Not like I will never watch this again. It was just like when it came back, I was like, oh, I'm glad, but I wasn't watching it. So I literally have a lot to catch up on. But it did feel still like a CW show. That's a problem, is that even though I could appreciate their ambition and that they spent some money, there's some effect shots, even in the first season, where I was like going, nice.
Oh, yeah. The effects are great from top to bottom.
Better than anything in Superman 4.
Yes.
But I was, it did feel kind of like, we're being a kind of a quiet and a soap opera. Felt like a soap opera.
It is a soap opera.
So that's not necessarily a bad thing. There's room for all kinds of stories in these universes. But yes, as you pointed out, I don't mind a lightheartedness or a sense of adventure, which really is something I think James Gunn will do well. Something I think the Spider-Man movies did really well over at Marvel, because even some of those, I love Winter Soldier, one of the best superhero movies ever done, but a lot of the, Cap became this pretty heavy, espionage type movies, Civil War, post, and as you head towards Infinity War and Endgame, everything got a little heavy. And thank God for things like the Ant-Man movies or Guardians, where, big stuff happens, but luckily there's some levity. And Spider-Man, even though Sony, they had good people in charge, because those have all felt like, that's the Marvel Universe, but these people just aren't burdened all the time.
Yeah.
So I don't mind that.
They did
and
great.
If Superman restores some sort of thrill and heart, that's all I want. Thrill and heart.
Yeah.
And lunch. It's time for me to eat. So let's wrap up.
Yeah. That was a good one.
It was a good one. Again, talking about a difficult subject, but you guys, you did it. You got me through the box. I guess somewhere down the line we'll do Superman Returns.
There are
somewhere down the line.
Lots of people want us to do that, even though we have talked about it before. But
and some people want us to do Batman 89, and trust me, that's not pulling any kind of, except for if you guys want us to keep going. I've never seen Batman and Robin.
I stopped. Well, I didn't watch that one either.
I saw Batman Forever,
and
I actually kind of liked it. But when the trailers came out for Batman and Robin, I was like, "Good God, that looks awful."
Yeah.
So I didn't go.
Yeah.
Do I have that Blu-ray? Yeah, I do. I've got the box set of the Batman films. Anyway, we'll watch whatever you want us to watch. Just that means you like hearing us complain. Anyway, Godspeed, and write us questions. You tell us something you'd like us to talk about, and we will.
Yeah.
Because it's fun for me to talk to Chad about nerdy stuff.
Yeah.
And hopefully you like hearing us. And yeah, that's my Captain America shield. And no,
damn right,
you can't play with it.
No.
Okay. We'll talk to you later, everybody. Bye. Peace apps.
Bye.
Peace out. That's embarrassing. I shouldn't do that. I'm 55. Bye.